Welcome back, everyone. Teaching good manners are some of the many lessons parents try to pass on to their kids, and it's not as easy as it might seem.
Yeah, thankfully, we have an etiquette expert, Mr. Manners himself, Thomas Farley, here to help us. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ernie.
Okay, so parents can teach kids all they want, but if parents aren't modeling the behavior, does it make it a little bit more difficult?
This is so true. I think we see this a lot with cell phones. You know, parents will say, oh, you're spending too much time in your screens, while the parents themselves are on the screen. So I think especially in a city like New York, we're running around, we're busy, we're overscheduled. It's super important that the parents do model that behavior and that you start really early.
And some of the first words, we see them back up there. They're called the magic words to teach your kids is please and thank you. How important is it to instill these words into their vocabulary?
Remember that book, Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, right? And yet somehow those kindergarten lessons do falter as we get older. Please, thank you, sorry, and excuse me are the four phrases that I think are really important to start from a very early age. And the reason being, we get what it is that we truly want out of interactions when we use those magic words. So it's not just about being nice, it's actually getting the results you want when you use those words.
I find saying excuse me on the subway stairs, you know, will get you a lot quicker through the line. And
really? I have found shoving does.
And those backpacks too, right? On the subway, you know, you knock into someone accidentally.
Excuse me. All right. Well, next you say kids should be able to practice active listening. Maybe a little bit advanced for kids, or what do you think?
Yeah, so we're not talking about the 3 or 4-year-olds here, but certainly by the time a child is 6 or 7, they should be able to listen to an adult speaking or a peer and be able to parrot back in their own words what they've just heard. The reason this is good, it inspires empathy, and it means that especially when they see one of their peers being picked on or bullied, they can actually engage in a more meaningful way because they hear what's really happening and can absorb it. So there's a big difference between hearing and listening.
What happens when your child, which would probably be my child, learns a 4-letter word, a bad word?
Well, they perhaps learned it at home, so you want to make sure.
I feel looked at.
Not your home. But this is usually, again, like the cell phones, do as I do, not as I do, as I say, not as I do. You want to make sure that you yourself, if you want that clean language at home, you're practicing that as well. But if they've learned it outside the home, you simply say, this is not language that we use at home, that's not appropriate, and you continue modeling.
Okay.
We know that
but then they'll use it outside.
When you're not watching.
Exactly.
It's about the foundation. You create that foundation, and what happens once they leave your doors, harder to control.
Understood.
So we know that some kids may have a hard time dealing with losing, like a game or something like that. And I'm not really from the school of give everybody a participation trophy. So how do you teach them to kind of navigate? Sometimes you lose.
This is really important, and again, I hate to keep putting the burden back on the parents, but if you're that parent who's in the stands screaming at the ump or screaming at the referee that you didn't like the call, whether it's at a professional sports game or a kid's sports game, what lesson are you teaching those kids? So teach them that it's not about winning or losing, it's about how you play the game. They should be shaking hands before the game and after, whether the winner or loser. And before you sign your child up for that team, inquire, what role does sportsmanship play in this team's philosophy? Ask that of the coach, and if it's no, it's all about winning, maybe this is not the team for your child.
Well, that makes sense. You know, parents spend so much time trying to build their kids' confidence. How can they actually teach kids to acknowledge others as well?
This is so important. I have a nephew who, when he was little, I'd have a catch with him, and I'm terrible. I'm so uncoordinated. But the one time I'd actually catch the ball, he'd actually say, Uncle Thomas, good catch. How wonderful. So I think that's a really important thing for kids to know, that it's not just about always affirming them, but that they learn to affirm others. And that can be a really good feeling when they say they put a smile on someone's face or made someone's day. So teach those lessons really early.
Okay, so this next one could be a little bit of a slippery slope. Is it ever okay to teach someone else's kids better manners? Or do you just mind your business?
Sure. Well, of course, if they're in a manners class, then of course that's what they're there for. But in a general situation, the only time I ever recommend interfering and saying something to another child who's not your own is if the child is actually in danger or putting someone else in danger. Otherwise, you have the parent intercede. This is not your role to intercede. We do not like it when our own kids are schooled by someone else's parents.
All right. Well, Thomas, please. Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Manners.
Excuse me.
All the right words. You learned them early. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining us today and teaching us some good manners. And for more etiquette lessons, you can follow Thomas on Instagram as well. The information right there on your screen.